Sanguine Alchemy's buff is better than you think. With the sandbox mix-up that came with episode Revenant, we got a complete rework to the Sanguine Alchemy. It can now mark targets for a 10% debuff and make you gain 4 times surges for that additional 25% damage bonus to your weapons that match your super. And when I saw that by marking targets you can debuff an enemy for 10%, I knew immediately where Bungie was going. So after testing it out, the answer is yes. Sanguine Alchemy is a stackable debuff, capping out at 43% if you round up. With tether or tractor, that is. Doesn't really matter. And with this new style of DPS, I would say that it is the replacement for the now nerfed Star Eater Nova Bomb DPS strat. But to answer a question that I feel that you might all have, yes, I have tried the loadout swap strat, starting with the Star Eater exotic armor, then going over to Sanguine. And there is currently a bug that is preventing anyone to use their arrow keys or D-pad to pull out the loadout tab, so it wastes just enough time for you just to break even on damage and not really profit at all. And also, here is an unfortunate disclaimer. The Sanguine Alchemy's stackable debuff only works for the players that are wearing it. So Hunters and Titans, you are just out of the game. You will only be shooting for the 30% debuff. And Warlocks, you have to have Sanguine on. This is a client-side debuff. So if one Warlock has it on, and then you also have Sanguine on, but you are not tagging the enemy within a rift, you are not getting the additional 10%. It does take a lot out of the team, but I guess Bungie couldn't let us really have everything, honestly. But the damage output is highly competitive, as you've seen. But before we get into the build, I just want to say that if you enjoy the content, drop a like and subscribe for me. It helps the video and me out more than you would know, and if it doesn't age well, you can always unsubscribe later. Now with that said, let's get into the build. Starting off with the subclass. For our super, we are going with the Cataclysm Nova Bomb. There's 2 reasons for this, and one of the main ones is that it's highly competitive for damage. Secondly, it pairs well with a Void weapon that we will be using that is also one of the best DPS weapons you can have in the game currently. There are other options for a few of the other supers that are in our roster, but I will be going over those briefly at the end of the video, so stick around for those. For your class ability, you do need a Rift type of class ability. So Phoenix Dive is out. That unfortunately does not work with Sanguine, but that's okay. Now, if you're using this for boss damage, you could go with whatever you're comfortable with, Healing Rift or Empowering Rift. If you can promise that you'll stay alive for the damage phase, Empowering Rift would actually just benefit you more for that. I think they buffed it to 20% bonus damage, but if that's completely incorrect, you will have a snippet on the screen telling you that I'm wrong. Skipping on over to the melee, we do have Arcane Needle. We have this for a few reasons. It does tick damage over time, and it is a great source to apply a darkness debuff for our Facet of Courage. Facet of Courage will be applying a 10% bonus to our light-based abilities. So this will be our Vortex Grenade and our Cataclysmic Nova Bomb, along with the Transcendence Grenade, for it does have that void aspect of it. But I digress. Now moving over to the grenade, I do want to say that this build that I'm making currently is pretty solo player focused. You benefit heavily for having a teammate with you, but if you don't have him, it's not the end of the world for this build. Reason being is that you'll get the 10% from the chest piece, and then you will get the 15% through the Vortex Grenade, paired with Facet of Dominus, which makes your void grenades weaken targets. And when you proc Transcendence, you will also be using the Singularity Grenade, which can also weaken enemies. For our aspects, the first one is Feed the Void. Devour is absolutely overpowered. It refreshes your health on kill, it gives you back an insane amount of grenade energy, and it's going to tie into a few fragments for us that just help us build Transcendence energy even more. For the next one is Bleak Watcher. Now, in my last video of the best DPS for Warlocks, I used the Bleak Watcher to be the reason that I could have Facet of Courage. I have come to the conclusion that this really doesn't matter. You actually benefit more just by throwing your grenade at the boss. This thing does give you Shatter, but it is highly negligible. But I still have it equipped. Why? Because of the mid game. For the phase before any boss encounter, it controls adds insanely well. And for me, that is all the reason I need to run it. So now we will be moving on to the fragments. For the first one, it will be Facet of Grace. This is only because I am running a kinetic weapon for my primary weapon. Now, if you're not running a primary weapon, and we'll be getting into some more builds later in the end of this video, but you could totally swap this out for whatever you want. Maybe you could swap it out for Facet of Dawn. For your melee, will make you radiant, doing that 25% extra bonus damage on top of all of your debuffs that you got going. And then of course, we've already been over Facet of Courage. For with the strand melee, you'll be doing 10% more for your light-based abilities. And then Facet of Dominance, making sure our void grenades apply weaken. Now for the next two, I feel like it's a bit rambly for me to say, but in gist, we have the Facet of Sacrifice. So while we have our Devour active just by getting any ability kill, any additional kills while we have Devour will be supplying us with darkness energy. And with a kinetic weapon with Devour applied, this is pretty much going to double dip into the darkness energy more, but that is why we need to flatten it out with Facet of Devotion. By killing an enemy that is affected by our Bleak Watcher or our strand melee, we get a bonus to light energy. So we will be gaining Transcendence energy extremely quickly. And Transcendence gives you 5% extra bonus damage. And now that the subclass is all hashed out, hopefully you're keeping up so far, we are going over the weapons now. So in my last DPS video for Warlocks, I was using Kvostov. Kvostov is a great weapon. You could still totally use it for this build, but I just decided to use Thorn because of random selection. There's really no reason. It's a great gun, so I'm not going to really harp on it too much. Run whatever you want here. It could be an exotic, it can be a basic ass legendary, doesn't matter. Now for the energy, I'm going with Wilder Flight, mainly because it is void. And since our super is of the void element, it's only optimal for us to double dip into this element. We're going to get the 4 times surges, remember. So Wilder Flight will be doing 25% more damage, on top of it just being a pretty good burst damage weapon. And then once we got the bait and switch all rolling up, we do have the King Edge Transit. Highly competitive in damage. I'd argue to say that it is actually one of the best in damage. Still hunts great, but not so great on a Warlock. And now that we got the weapons all hashed out, it is time to go over the mods. And believe it or not, you don't really need any. Sure, you can run your mods like heavy ammo finders, maybe a void reloader just so you can get back into shooting a little bit faster, but there is nothing on here that I would say you need, which is the brilliance of it. But one thing that I will tell you that you do need is over actually in the artifact perk, and this is it. It's Concussive Reloader. Keep in mind, this build is solo friendly, and that's the reason why I am showing you Concussive Reloader. If you're solo and you don't have anybody applying a weaken for you and you're not getting it from your grenades, simply just by shooting a boss, champion, or breaking a shield combatant will weaken them. This is breach and clear, probably a little less because it is just a 15% debuff as well. Now, if you're in a team environment, you still can get great benefits from this because of its secondary perk. See where it says boost? Using the grenade launchers to damage a boss, champion, or break a combatant shield, it will automatically reload stowed weapons. And for a weapon without auto loading, like Edge Transit, this will be great. You pop out your Wilder Flight, maybe it has auto reloading on, you shoot the boss, and now your Edge Transit is fully reloaded. Now, how to activate this, for those that are just curious, it's over here in your tonic capsule. You need to go and craft this tonic. It is called the Tonic of Weakening Void. Of course, there are different tiers. I have the diluted tonic of Weakening Void and then the potent tonic of Weakening Void. There's also a purple and then an exotic one as well. The tier of the tonic is just its timer. This one lasts 20 minutes. This one lasts 40 minutes. The legendary one lasts an hour. But yes, have this applied and you can get that secondary boost to that artifact mod. And now that all of that is hashed out, hopefully you're keeping up so far. I hope I'm not rambling too much. I can understand if I am, but it's time to get into the gameplay strategy, the rotation, if you will. So at the beginning of the damage phase, you just want to throw your void grenade for that 15% if you don't have a tractor guy on your team. If you do, still doesn't matter. Throw the grenade, it's just extra damage. After that, you're going to shoot your melee, lob your super, pop Transcendence after that, throw the Transcendence grenade just for more damage and to reapply the Void Weaken if you are solo. Then start the damage rotation of bait and switch, just going down the line of all 3 of your weapons. And that's how you achieve some mass damage. You're getting the stackable debuffs up to 43% if you have a guy on tractor. You're getting the damage boosts from 25% from surge mods, 25% from the Well of Radiance if you got a guy that's doing that. Also, if you are using the Facet of Dawn, that will just give you your 25% on top of the surges as well. There is a lot stacking into this build. I honestly can understand if it's a little complicated to understand. Now, in conclusion, there are many combinations of builds that you can do with this to get a lot of damage out of it. It just boils down to matching your damage dealing weapon to the super. Another highly competitive option would be the Strand Super Needle Storm, pairing that with Euphony, and you would get the same damage benefits of the stackable debuff and the 4x surges. My buddy Creed did bring up a Song of Flame option with Cartesian and Dragon's Breath. I do feel like that is great on paper. I haven't tried it myself, but you definitely could, and tell me how that is in the comments below. It sucks that the debuff only applies for you, but maybe Bungie will release it to be a community debuff in the future, or that's just wishful thinking. So yeah. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, consider supporting me by hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out more than you know, and I love you all for it. Now take care and peace.